Welcome to the Inman First Baptist Church Lenten podcast. I am Jeremiah.
And I am Amber.
And we are so glad that you are with us today for our second week of Lent. And just for a disclaimer, me and Amber just recorded this podcast, and we realized that the mute button was on the microphone after we recorded it.
And it was good.
It was really good, but this one
is going to be even better.
Even better. That's right. So just sit back, relax, and listen to our podcast. Last week, we started this journey to redemption. And do you remember what our story was last week?
It was Exodus. It was about Moses leading the people out of Egypt.
That's right. And it was a story about redemption from oppression. And we talked about last week that oppression can take many forms. It's not just slavery. It can be in our everyday lives. What were some of the examples we talked about last week?
We talked about mental illness and how it can feel oppressive, especially if you're not aware or when you become aware, taking care of yourself.
Like anxiety and depression.
And addiction. Addiction can also be oppressive. Systems can be oppressive. There's a lot of ways that you can feel oppressed or be oppressed. And
we talked about, how God redeems God's people out of Egypt, and God used a Moses to do that. And we talked about how that, God may use us like a Moses, not necessarily to save people, but to walk with them, to help them during those circumstances. Mm-hmm. And that was a beautiful kind of imagery of how God works in the world for redemption.
Yeah, coming alongside others and giving them a voice or helping them find their voice.
And we talked about how Jesus is the ultimate source of that liberating redemption, that Jesus liberates us from sin and death. So this week, we're continuing the journey to redemption, and our theme this week is
forgiveness.
Yes. We just
talked about it.
We just talked about it. And forgiveness is a really important part of what Jesus teaches us as his disciples about what this life of God is like.
Yeah. The kingdom on earth.
The kingdom on earth. And when you think about, the stories of forgiveness, at least in the New Testament, what are some of those stories that you think about?
Well, I think the ultimate story of forgiveness is Jesus on the cross. Yeah. And the journey it took to get there, and how the people wanted him crucified, his own people, and he on the cross said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And I think our human nature and our humanness leads us down some really dark paths sometimes if we're not leaning into loving kindness and what God is and Jesus teaches us.
Yeah. I mean, most of us, if we were in Jesus's place and we had been lied about and we had been beaten and we were watching people laugh at us and mock us and, gamble our clothes away, we would probably be asking God to just throw down curses and all of those things.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we know is that when Jesus says, "Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing," Jesus stands in a place for something different and new.
Yeah.
That's not being experienced around him. And this opportunity of forgiveness is one that invites us to a new reality and a new way of living.
As you said earlier, it's countercultural.
Yeah. It's very subversive in different ways. So today we're going to focus on an Old Testament story, probably the Old Testament story of forgiveness. It starts in Genesis with two brothers. Do you remember the first story of brothers in Genesis?
Yes.
Yes.
Cain and Abel.
Oh, Cain and Abel. And what happens?
There's a lot of jealousy and resentment, and Cain kills Abel.
Yeah. And then when God comes to Cain and says, "Where is your brother?" and he says, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Wonderful question that we should all continue to ask ourselves. And God finds out that he has. Then God puts a mark on Cain. And that mark is a reminder for everyone that encounters Cain not to give violence for violence, not to seek justice, but to allow Cain to live his life outside of this eye for an eye. And one of the things we'll talk about in our story today is that Joseph offers the story of Joseph as the other end of the spectrum of brothers. So you have Cain and Abel, then you have
Jacob and Esau,
Jacob and Esau before
Isaac and Ishmael.
Ishmael, and then Jacob and Esau, and then Joseph and his brothers. And through all of those stories, you see this question: are they going to be like Cain, or can there be a different future for them? And it's one that we kind of ask ourselves today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the story of Joseph, when you think about the story of Joseph, what are some of the pictures that come to your mind?
Well, we did talk about this earlier, but I think about the one thing that immediately pops up is the coat or robe of many colors that Jacob offers Joseph out of love, and most likely the jealousy of his brothers, as he was the youngest at the time, and just felt more chosen or more loved than they did. And then their plot to try to kill him.
Yeah. So Jacob has two wives, Leah and Rachel, and he loves Rachel. He worked 7 years for her,
And
then
gets more.
gets tricked. He marries Leah first, then gets Rachel. And Leah is very fertile, and Rachel seemed to be barren for a very long time until they have Joseph, but Rachel dies. And we can only imagine that Jacob loved Rachel so much that he sees Rachel in Joseph. I see Lily in you. And I can't get mad at her because I can't get mad at you.
Oh, well, you can, but yeah, but I see Lily in you too.
But it's one of those when you love somebody and you love somebody. So he treats this youngest son differently.
Yes.
And the brothers see it. Not only that, he has some dreams.
Yeah, Joseph is very quick to share his dreams about his brothers bowing down to him. And I don't think that would go over very well.
Not go over, especially if they already resent you and then you're telling them that one day I'll be over you.
Yeah.
And they're probably afraid that they're going to lose something out of this relationship with their father. So they start to conspire. And they decide they're going to do what?
They're going to kill him, murder him.
Yeah. So they take him, he's supposed to be out being a shepherd, go out, and they eventually throw him into a pit. Mm-hmm. And one of the brothers says, we're not going to kill him. Let's do what?
Sell him into slavery.
Yeah. So they take his beautiful, beautiful robe, they cover it up with blood from an animal, take it back to their father and say he's been murdered by a wild animal. And Jacob mourns.
Yeah.
And then Joseph is taken to Egypt as a slave, and he ends up in whose house?
Potiphar's house.
And Potiphar has a wife, doesn't he?
And she really likes Joseph. She takes a liking to him.
She's a Mrs. Robinson, let me tell you.
Yeah. But you know what? He's good, and he does not do any wrong. And then she lies, and he's put into jail.
Yeah. And in jail, we can only imagine Joseph has all of this time to think about the people that have hurt him.
And all the injustices that he has faced as he has been trying to live right and well.
And we think about our own lives when we've been hurt by the people that not only are close to us, but the people that we try to do well to, whether it's a work situation or whatever, and they do something wrong to us, and we have time to think about it. What are some of the things we think about?
We think about ways to get back.
Yeah.
If not, get back worse. I mean, we are human and we have vengeful thoughts.
We do.
Yeah.
I'm always reminded, of movies and stuff where you have these revenge stories. And I think that people like movies like John Wick or Death Wish. I kind of wrote about those in the Lent devotional because they are escapist ways for us to imagine if we could do that and get away with it, would we do it?
Yeah.
It's
you always watch action movies where the hero wins.
I do like action movies.
And I am not a fan of violence.
And I'm a very peacemaking person. I've never hit anybody, nor been hit by anybody.
Very peaceful.
But, those are things that a lot of people just kind of get into. And
it's just human nature.
And I think it's kind of escapist kind of to think about if we could live in that world because we are made to want justice in the world. Mm-hmm. And we think that justice is often an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. People should get a measure of what they've been given. Mm-hmm. So Joseph's in prison. He's got plenty of time to think on his hands. But in there, he meets somebody who has a dream, and he interprets the dream. And from there, that person gets out of prison, eventually works with Pharaoh, and Pharaoh has dreams. and he interprets and he remembers Joseph. So when Joseph interprets the dreams for Pharaoh, do you remember what is Joseph able to do?
Well, I mean, he's able to move into power,
Yeah.
Get out of prison, and really becomes pretty big in leadership. In Pharaoh's world.
So Pharaoh is dreaming dreams about an upcoming famine, and Joseph is able to say we're going to have 7 good years, 7 bad years.
So save up on the good year.
Save up on the good years. Yeah. So we get to the point during the famine that Jacob and the other brothers are hungry. Mm-hmm. And they need to go to Egypt because that's where the extra storage of food is.
The bounty, yes.
So when the brothers go to Egypt, Joseph recognizes them, and they don't recognize him. And through a long series of events, he conspires to get all of the brothers together. His younger brother that he's never met, Benjamin. And they are very confused on why this is happening. He even gets to the point where he puts things into their bags that look like they've stolen them so that they have to do all of this stuff. It's a really good story.
It is. Yeah.
Go back and as you're reading it, if you don't know the story, it feels like one of those revenge scenarios because he's getting all of them together and they finally are together in one room and he reveals his identity, takes the mask off. Now, if you're one of the brothers, how do you feel?
I would be terrified.
Yeah.
I think my throat would go into the pit of my stomach and I may throw up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm thinking my death is coming.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. And I would think about all the things that I did to Joseph, or that one thing of whatever I participated in, where maybe I do deserve that kind of justice, if I'm really honest with myself.
And they've already seen
so
Jacob's mourning so much that they're afraid that something's going to happen to Benjamin too. So I think at some point within these years of separation, they have kind of realized what they did was
maybe
wrong.
They feel bad.
But they never told their daddy what they did. So Joseph reveals himself. He's able to get Jacob and the family there in Egypt, and they are provided for.
Yeah.
And years pass, and finally their father, Jacob, dies. And when that happens, the brothers, in the back of their mind, think, well, maybe daddy's been the thing, keeping Joseph from getting his revenge.
Yeah.
So would you read for us out of Genesis chapter 50, verses 15 through 21,
yes,
the conclusion to our brother's story?
Absolutely. Realizing that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers said, "What if Joseph still bears a grudge against us and pays us back in full for all the wrong we did to him?" So they approached Joseph, saying, "Your father gave this instruction before he died. So say to Joseph, I beg you, forgive the crime of your brothers and the wrong they did in harming you. Now therefore, please forgive the crime of the servants of the God of your father." Joseph wept when they spoke to him. Then his brothers also wept, fell down before him and said, "We are here as your slaves." But Joseph said to them, "Do not be afraid. Am I in the place of God? Even though you intended to do harm to me, God intended it for good, in order to preserve the numerous people as he is doing today. So have no fear. I myself will provide for you and your little ones." In this way, he reassured them, speaking kindly to them.
Yeah. So the conclusion of this story begins with the brothers coming to Joseph, and they make a claim that may or may not be accurate.
Yeah.
Daddy said,
"You need to forgive us."
Yeah. And what is Joseph's response?
He wept.
Yeah.
And he basically said there's no grudge against them. Do not be afraid.
Yeah. And we hear that in the Old Testament. Who normally announces, "Do not be afraid"?
The angels.
The angels of the Lord, and then Jesus will say it too.
Yes.
And then he asked that question, Am
I in place of God?
Yeah. And that's a really important question that he asked, because in many ways he does represent the power and authority of God to them, in that he,
in a physical form,
he has the ability to forgive or not to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
And this beautiful question that he asked, am I in the place of God? And the question we would have is, how do we represent God to other people? And one of the things that we know from the New Testament is Jesus talks about forgiveness a lot. He doesn't just mention it once, he mentions it over and over again. In Matthew's gospel, we see Jesus teach the Lord's Prayer. What does he say?
Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us.
And immediately after he does the Lord's Prayer, he turns to his students, his disciples, and says that, if you're unwilling to forgive another person, then God can't forgive you. That's really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
When Jesus says that forgiveness is, in many ways, we represent that forgiveness to other people from what we've received. And Joseph models for them what God is like, just the way that we model what God is like when we forgive.
Mm-hmm.
What else in that passage really stands out to you, Amber?
The fact that as they saw Joseph weep, could be for the death of his dad, but also because he sees that his brothers maybe have been carrying this burden all this time, waiting for the revenge, thinking that with the death of their dad, it may happen. And Joseph forgives them, and then they also weep and fall down, before him. And in a way, I feel like maybe asking for forgiveness. We are here as your slaves. We please have mercy on us. But also, I love, and I said this earlier, but I do love the last sentence, which is, in this way, he reassured them, speaking kindly to them. And I just think about loving kindness, and you can't have loving kindness without a heart of forgiveness. And forgiveness is very hard. And unless you have experienced that from someone else, which I hope we all have, to know how that feels and to be able to offer that to someone else that may have wronged you.
And one of the things I love about that is that kindness. And it's also the idea is that Joseph not only forgives them, but he restores them.
And he takes care of their generations.
They're in a place where they are vulnerable, where they may not have a future, and he gives them a new possibility.
He breaks that cycle of murder and revenge.
And then he takes it and gives them really hope that they have a future. And I love that, because when we think about the cross and we think about, those that are hurting Jesus, like you talked about earlier, Jesus takes all of that sin that is given to him and he forgives. But not only does he forgive through his death, God takes that sin and makes a new possibility out of the resurrection. And in that, we are invited to not just to pay for our sin, which would be that retributive justice, an eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, but he gives us restoration and redemption.
I was thinking about baptism when you said that too. How that's truly the symbol of baptism, is to be raised to new life. I also thought about, and I remember what I had said earlier, but it's his family, and I think it hurts. For me, in my experience, it hurts worse when family hurts you. Like the people you love hurt you the worst, and those are the people that you hurt the worst. And so, being able to love them in spite of their humanness, I think creates a space of love to bloom and redemption within families. We've engaged people in our lives that we've mentored or counseled that have experienced deep hurt from spouses or children or parents. And, it's easy to want to do the same thing back to them, thinking that that's justice. However, it does not do anything except hurt. And you just continue to carry that burden and the heaviness that will continue to be played out if you continue that path. But being able to forgive and make new the relationship just stops a cycle in many ways of abuse or of generational trauma. that kind of thing.
One of the things we mentioned earlier that I think is important to think about is, let's take, for example, marriage couple. One spouse does something to the other spouse. Maybe it's towards them, maybe it's with somebody else, whatever it is, it hurts that person. And we've had people that have come and spoken to us that think that it's okay to do the exact same thing to the other person, thinking that'll solve the problem.
Well, in your logical brain, it makes sense in the moment.
That way you'll be even.
Yeah.
And the reality is it causes more problem.
And hurt.
And it causes more hurt, and it involves more people.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we know is that when you try to get retribution for something, it not only hurts that person, but it hurts all the people around them. And then it also hurts you in a way because your reputation and the people around you view you differently. Always think about kind of generational hurt.
Yeah.
It continues to pass from one generation to another. And
until someone stops.
Until someone stops that process. And I think of, hurt or sin as kind of ripple effects in a pond. Mm-hmm. And it just continues to spread and it continues to enlarge the community. And it's only when someone offers that other possibility of forgiveness. I do not think that Joseph's brothers ever thought that would be possible.
No, I don't. Not in the world that they lived in.
They only thought that it would be an eye for an eye. And when that change happens and he offers them a new possibility, they have to be overcome. And, and not only are they weak.
Because they were preparing for
the worst, but it is a reprieve. But it is also a way of moving forward differently. And the same way God does that in Jesus for each of us. And we're called to carry that forward to other people. One of the things I want us to think about, especially for our small groups that'll be meeting this week, when you think about your own story, each of us have been hurt by people. And we're going to share stories about that hurt to a certain extent. But one of the things I want us to think about is, how did we imagine how we would respond? Mm-hmm. And I always encourage people, when you're angry with someone and you want to hurt them, go ahead and allow your mind to go past you getting your revenge to what happens next after that, and how that will carry on into a way that you realize, if you allow that kind of mental imagination to get there, you realize it's not worth it.
It's greater than you and greater than this.
It becomes so much worse for not just the person that you hurt, but for yourself. Mm-hmm. Because when you meet violence for violence, when you meet hurt for hurt, it just compounds itself more and more. It's kind of like interest in the bank. It escalates to an extreme amount. Maybe not our bank, but other banks.
Yeah. Hey, can you think of a time in your life, because you have a pretty good story, of when you had sought retribution?
So the earliest I can remember, eye for an eye, and Amber will say this, I am a very meek and mild person. I've never been in a fist fight. I've never hit anybody. I might have been hit in the past, but I don't remember ever really, Yeah. So the earliest memory I have of eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, I was probably 4, maybe 5. It was before we moved to Shelby, so it was before I was 6. And me and my brother were in an argument of some sort, and I just got so mad at him. I grabbed his hand, I put his finger in my mouth, and I just bit it as hard as I could. And his tears started gushing, and he was going, I'm going to tell Mom, I'm going to tell Mom. And I said, no. I gave him my finger, I put it in his mouth, I said, you bite as hard as you want, brother. And he bit it, and I still have the scar here from where he bit that. And guess what? We both cried, and we both got in trouble. And I thought even then, that was dumb. I should have just got my spanking.
Yeah.
I mean, because it hurt, and it hurt for probably a week or so. Because he bit me hard. He was mad.
Yeah.
And sometimes the realization is, when we get our retribution, sometimes we go farther than the person went on us.
That's true.
And that can be even more painful, because it just, kind of, and that's one of those early memories of retribution. What about you, Amber?
Well, I have some stories about my brothers, especially my younger brother, but I will hold those to myself. But we had some pretty good
back and forth.
Yeah, back and forth. Yeah. when we were little, me and Grant. But I was thinking about in adulthood.
Yeah.
I don't like to think that I can be vengeful, and I know that I can be. And this was a situation where I felt like there was someone within my
This was many years ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
like about 10
years.
10 or so years ago. I've evolved a lot since then. But where I saw an injustice, and I saw someone that I worked with really bullying people that were subordinate to them. And it made me so upset that I protected those folks, but in turn became a bully to this particular person. And it took me years to really see this. And the hurt that I probably caused, and in the end, reached out and did say I was sorry, and it was very meaningful. It took more years, but it made me realize that a lot of times hurting people hurt people. We know that, or we've heard that, and also a lot of times when we see things in other people that really upset us, we know that we have that capacity within us.
Yeah.
And if we're aware of that, that's the first step. But also being aware of that, not shaming that, but realizing that. And then that allows you to be able to see that and be able to continue to pause and make different choices.
Yeah.
But also to realize that you are human just as they are.
Yeah.
And it allows you to be able to hold that, hopefully, forgiveness for whatever has happened.
Yeah.
And do something different.
And I'm kind of in a moment where I don't know if it's this podcast or the last podcast that we did that got deleted because we didn't have Sam. But have I told about the anthropology story?
No, you haven't.
Okay, good.
Not yet.
So when I was in college, I wrote a little bit about it in the Lenten devotion, but I took an anthropology of war class. I had some electives I could use, and I took several anthropology classes. And we had a professor, if you know the actor Steve Buscemi, he looked like him. He was really skinny, had a mustache, and he had a rat tail. But it wasn't just a rat tail. It was like this long. And he would stick it down the middle of his back in his collar, down his shirt, and it had little beads on it. And he would get so animated in class, that thing would wiggle out, and then it would just be flying around. And it was one of those, he was a great professor, but it was just like, that's weird. But anyway, that's a long story. But we talked about in the class, the history of war and, where does it begin? And it really does begin in kind of tribal communities. And
kind of like familial communities.
Yeah, these family communities, but also you might have a family community here and a family community there. And if one person steals somebody's goat, then you're going to go back and steal another goat. Or if you have a conflict and somebody kills a child over here or a young person, that you're going to have to do that. And the Israel begins its history as tribes. Mm-hmm. And it's no wonder that their law is eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, life for life, because it tries to keep people from engaging those sorts of things, knowing good and well, if you do, these are the penalties. I mean, we have laws today, and we know if you do X, Y, Z, these are the penalties. Does that stop people from doing stuff?
No, because we're human and we feel like we deserve justice.
Yeah. And we think that this is justice.
Yes.
We think that, if somebody does this, that equal payment ought to be the same. And what we see with Jesus is Jesus says, you've heard it was said, an eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. But I say to you,
turn the other cheek.
Turn the other cheek. If you are slapped on one, give them the other. If they ask you to walk a mile, walk two. And Jesus essentially says, by not engaging in retribution, you can stop it.
Yeah, and it can create peace.
Yeah. And Joseph models for us a model of stopping retribution. Jesus models that same way. And the question becomes, how do we model that for each other? And that can be a really hard way of living.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about how hard it is that Jesus goes to a cross to forgive us.
Yeah. Yeah. For things that he did not do.
Yeah. And the same way for us, when Jesus says to pick up your cross and to follow me, a cross is an image of shame in the world. And there's not a lot of people that would look at someone that turns the other cheek and put a way to go, buddy. they would say, "You're what?
Crazy.
You're crazy.
Yeah. Why didn't you hit them back?
Why didn't you hit it back?" If somebody steals something from you and you don't go and steal something from them, they're going to call you all kinds of like strange names. You could
Yeah.
kind of
It
see
doesn't
that.
make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And countercultural living doesn't make
it
sense.
doesn't.
But
And
that's what Jesus teaches us to do.
but Jesus teaches us that there is a different way to live in the
Mhm.
world. And forgiveness is not easy, but it really is the only way that we are able to free ourselves from that anger and that
Yeah,
hurt.
I had a therapist tell me, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned this before, but that it holds power over us, and I don't want to think that's something that I'm putting energy into that of trying to find revenge, because it's not going to do any good, and it just takes energy from me that I need to put in other places, and it's not the way that I hope to show love and show God and show Jesus through me. But once you forgive and release that,
Mhm.
it helps to create space for energy towards
Yeah.
loving yourself and also loving others.
Yeah. And when Joseph says, God intended for good in order to preserve a numerous people, you know, things that happen to us are bad, but
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that we have to let that bad grow in us and then come out of us, that we can let the bad be turned into something good. And
Yeah.
that's really is the story of the cross, because out of the cross, God gives us resurrection and new life.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful story as we think about this journey to redemption, whether it's the oppressiveness of someone that has power over us or the oppressiveness of the hurt that we carry. God can give us freedom from that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned in that podcast you listened
Yeah, I
to.
love this podcast. It's called Abiding Together. It's a bunch of several women that get together, and they've just really spoken to me over the last year. And anyway, they were talking about how hurt people, and we've heard that. But they also just I sat with it this week. A statement they made. One of the nuns made, because it's a Catholic podcast, but was healing people heal people.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made me really think about all of the healing that I have worked to do, because I have a temper. I have a lot of anger. I see justice in ways that is not countercultural, but I work so hard to show up differently now. I've evolved into this person. And so I really like to think that as a healing person, I am helping to heal others and be a mentor and a guide and just an example. And so that's one of the things that I love about, I don't know if I said this earlier in this podcast or not, but, the last sentence of this, in this way, Joseph reassured them, speaking kindly.
Yeah.
I did already, sorry.
We've done it a couple of times today.
Yeah, this time hopefully we have sound. But yeah, I mean, just kindness. I mean, what does that look like? And the difference between being nice and being kind.
Yeah.
There is a difference.
And I think on this journey to redemption, we go back to last week, liberated people look to help liberate other people.
Yeah.
And forgiven people forgive people.
Yeah, forgive people and help others to be able to forgive.
Yeah. So I think as we think about this journey to redemption, as we encounter God's redemption in our lives, we carry that redemption to each and every person we meet. And it's in different facets of our lives. Maybe it's through forgiveness. Maybe it's, as we'll talk about, in other ways that healing people heal, I think, is a great way to think about. We can add all of these different ways of healing or redemption or salvation, these facets, whether it's liberation, whether it's forgiveness, whether it's, next week we talk about a different story and another story. We model for others what God is doing for us.
Yeah. And again, healing people. We're always working towards healing.
Yeah.
I didn't say healed people, heal people.
Healing
So,
people. And I love that, we think about salvation. The Apostle Paul says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling, because it is a process. It isn't a once and done. We are constantly being made new in Christ over and over and over again. And just like Jesus says to pray for forgiveness each and every day, like we need food, we work on it each and every day.
Yes, we do. It's a daily
Yeah.
daily commitment, just like love is a choice. So is forgiveness. But yeah.
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 And I hope that you'll use this language of journey, because journey is constant movement.
Yes.
We're constantly being on that journey to redemption.
Yeah.
And just like the Israelites coming out of Egypt, we're tempted sometimes to go back.
Yes.
And it's constantly moving forward towards the goal, which is Christ Jesus.
And having us journey with you, because we're always on the journey too, together.
So as a church, if you are experiencing areas that you need help in forgiveness, maybe someone has hurt you, maybe you're dealing with that hurt, you don't have to do it alone. Know that you can come to the ministry staff, you can come to Amber, you can come to others within the church, and say to them, listen, I've been hurt, but I want to journey towards healing and forgiveness. Help me. And we're here to help you as well. Amber, before we go, you wanted to give a shout out to a different group?
I do. I really
So last week you gave a shout out to
events team. I just thank them for their service and for their servant heart, and just preparing meals for us on Wednesday, which I'm sure we enjoyed. By the time you hear this, our lasagna. And I just feel like I want to say thank you to different ministries in our church. And so this week, I just wanted to thank our deacons. They are a representative of our church. They walk along lots of families. Each family has a deacon that is assigned to them, and they just are there to not only be with us through the hard times when they show up really well also, but also in the celebration and in the times of celebrating, and they do that really well. And so I just want to say thank you to our deacons. Yeah. And, I think that I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. We appreciate our deacons, not only that they offer servant leadership to the church, but they are there on Sunday mornings greeting us. Mm-hmm. They are there when we have a loss in the family, and many of them communicate with their families throughout the weeks. And if you don't know your deacon and you would like to know, for some reason you've lost track, call us. We'll get you connected so that you know who your deacon is. We have wonderful deacons in our church, both men and women serving faithfully. Yes. And it's a wonderful, wonderful ministry of our church. Yeah. Well, we hope you have a great week. Come on Wednesday night. If you're not part of the intergenerational group, that's okay. You can still come to dinner. And we have a wonderful dinner each and every week. We hope you have a great week. And for those of you that are fasting this week,
we're with you.
We're with you. We're giving up a lot. And those little Girl Scouts were out tempting me today, but I said no. I said no to them. So maybe you'll have the willpower to do that as well. So we hope you have a great week.
Yes. Bye.